MacVoices is supported by Eero, the wireless mesh network solution that you need. Visit Eero.com to get yours and use the coupon code MacVoices to receive free overnight shipping. And by Smile, the makers of world-class software like PDF Pen for Mac, PDF Pen Pro for Mac, PDF Pen for iPhone and iPad, PDF Pen Scan Plus for iPhone and iPad, Text Expander for Mac, and Text Expander for iPhone and iPad. Learn more about all their great products at smilesoftware.com. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, it seems like automating your Mac is becoming a big topic. There's the CMD-Conference coming up. It's something that I've touched on. I touched on a little bit at MacStock, but now we come to one of the experts in the field, or at least one of the experts that we love to hear from, Mr. Joe Kissell. Joe, welcome. It's good to see you.
I am happy to have sent my robot representation of myself to be here with you. Since the real Joe was busy, I don't know, building his robot army. Does that work?
It's a little disturbing, but yeah, it works. And the reason you're here is because you have now authored Take Control of Automating Your Mac, second edition, an upgrade to a previous book.
Yes.
Congratulations, as always.
Thank you. Well, this book has needed to be updated for a while. It was about 3 years old, getting a little long in the tooth, And the fact that you mentioned the CMD-Conference, the fact that that is happening around now was sort of the impetus to update the book now as opposed to some other time. So I don't know exactly when this is going to air in relationship to the conference, but if it happens to be a bit before and if it's applicable, all the attendees of CMD are going to get the book that we're about to talk about for free.
Oh, that's very nice.
And I have been working with Sal Segoyan and Naomi Pierce on some things in relationship to the book, and it is an exciting time.
Well, that's great, and I think it's exciting from a user perspective because all of a sudden it feels like, number one, we're recognizing that some of us have been using little bits and pieces of automation for a while, but more importantly, all of a sudden there are all these new options for us to take advantage of. New utilities and new ways of thinking about automation that just make you want to go out and dig even deeper. And
That's
so
right.
Tell me where to start digging, Joe.
Well, as just maybe a bit of review for those few people who don't actually buy every one of my books and consume them cover to cover, because there must surely be a couple of those people out there still.
We know who you are, too.
You know who you are, and we're coming for you. So this book first came out a few years ago, and it was 2014, and I had wanted to do a book on Mac automation for a long time because I'm really into automating my Mac. I want to automate as many things as possible. It's really just quite satisfying to me. And there are so many ways to automate your Mac. And what people would tell me is, oh, well, yeah, you're talking about AppleScript, right? Oh, I tried that and I just didn't understand it. It was too complicated. It was too weird. And so I'm not really a candidate for automation. And then some people say, oh, you don't mean AppleScript, you mean Automator. Well, yeah, there are a few things that I can do with Automator, but it doesn't really, scratch my itch, doesn't really solve the problem that I have. And for a lot of people, their idea of automation it's kind of one of those things, or maybe it's something that only computer science majors or hardcore nerds do. So what I wanted to do with the first version of the book was to kind of bust that myth. I wanted to say, you're probably already using automation and not even realizing it. I wanted to define automation as broadly as I possibly could, as inclusively as I possibly could, to say anything that you can do to save time or effort on your Mac. You make something happen with fewer mouse clicks, or fewer menu commands, or less time, or less effort, less typing, less whatever. Anything that you do to save effort on your Mac is a form of automation. So we started with the really easy things, like keyboard shortcuts, learning the ones that are built in, adding your own, some little tricks around keyboard shortcuts, moving on to things like text expansion, which you type a few letters, it automatically expands into a word or a phrase or a paragraph. And macOS has that built-in capability, but you can also use tools like Text Expander and Typeinator and Type It For Me to do more of that kind of stuff. Launching apps, you might use Spotlight to launch apps. If you don't already, it's a cool thing and really easy thing to do. But also there are other apps that can do that and then more and better and easier stuff like LaunchBar and Butler and Alfred. So for a whole bunch of different categories, whether it's launching apps or managing your clipboard, keyboard shortcuts, text expansion, whole long list of things, I said, here's kind of what you might already be doing or what's really, really easy to learn. You don't have to spend any money. You don't have to buy any software. But then once you get hooked, you might say, all right, well, if I did spend $10 on this app, look at all those other cool things I could do. So I wanted to get people hooked on the idea of automation being a simple, fun thing. You don't have to be a geek. You don't have to wear a propeller beanie or a guinea. And you make stuff easier for yourself because life is short. Who doesn't want things to be easier? And then, yes, I do move on to those classic automation things like services, Automator, AppleScript, Shell scripts, macros, other kinds of automation. But I kind of wanted to preach the message that this isn't hard. It's not a geek-only domain. It's something that everybody can do. And once you've done a little bit of it, you're going to say, I've just saved 5 minutes there. I wonder if I could do something else and save 10 minutes. I've just saved 10 minutes. I wonder if I could save an hour. So I love automation for that reason. It's in one way kind of a puzzle. I want to figure out the most efficient, optimal way of doing something that if I'm going to be doing it multiple times every day to make that thing take less time and less effort and have fewer errors, and just always find more ways to do that. So I love automation. This is one of my very favorite Take Control books. And I'm really excited that in this edition, I get to go both broader and deeper and teach you a lot more about it.
Joe, one of the biggest barriers, at least for me, for automation is recognizing the things that I do often that maybe can do that. Obviously, you type your name, you type your address. Maybe email signatures are very conveniently incorporated in something like Text Expander. But do you have any guides or recommendations on how we go about recognizing that, hey, dummy, this is something you do frequently, and therefore you should look into how to do it faster, better, easier?
I do. In fact, that's one of the first things I talk about in the book. I recommend employing this technology. Now, this is what's known in the industry as paper, and this is a pen. So I have this little routine that you can go through. You use an actual piece of paper and an actual writing implement to record certain things that you notice yourself doing multiple times in the day. You're not writing a thesis. You're just making little notes. But I want to train you to get in the habit of noticing how many steps it takes to do certain stuff. Well, every morning I sit down and in my case, I stand, but I have to open these certain apps and I have to open these certain documents. Well, just count how many clicks it takes you to do all that stuff. Go ahead, count, put a little tally there. Now, I notice I just had to go to this menu. No, wait, that was the wrong one. This menu. No, okay, now I have to go to this submenu. That's the wrong. No, this submenu. And okay, yeah, there's the command I need. So you do a certain amount of mousing or trackpadding or whatever to get to menu commands. I tell you, here's how you can start noticing these repetitive activities that you do. I mean, if you're going to do a thing only once ever or only once a week and it takes you 30 seconds, whatever, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. But if you're doing something multiple times a day, multiple times an hour, or if it's something that you only do once a month, but when you do it, it's this really long, involved, complicated thing, you keep notes about how many clicks, how many keystrokes, how many menu selections, how many steps it took you to do that. When you start seeing a lot of big numbers on that list, you think, all right, that took me 5 mouse clicks. Joe seems to be saying that I could do almost anything with only 1 or 2 mouse clicks. So how could I turn those 5 clicks into 1 or 2? And chances are the book will tell you. Here's something that took me 10 keystrokes to do. Could I reduce that to 2 or 3? I bet you can. And if you start getting into those habits of noticing those things and use the ancient technology of paper to record them, there's a good chance you will find a rich field of things that you can mine for automation opportunities.
A question on that technology you showed there.
Yes.
Is it essential that the pen be purple?
Are there other colors? Is it possible? I didn't know that ink came in other colors. That's weird.
Just thought I'd ask.
This is new information for me.
Okay, just thought I'd ask. Okay, so I can think of a few things that sort of fit your description, but the problem with it is that there are multiple applications involved.
Yeah.
So it's one thing for me to try to assign a keystroke in a dedicated application or whatever, but if I'm dealing with multiple applications, kind of where do I start?
My counsel is to try the easiest method first, and if you get stuck doing the easiest method, to move on to harder methods. Now, that's a little bit of a obviously weasel language there, because what's easy for one person may not be easy for the next person. For most of the kinds of things that you're describing, my go-to tool is an app called Keyboard Maestro. Keyboard Maestro is a macro utility. And all that means is you give it a list of steps that you want it to do. Hey, choose this menu command, click this button, open this URL, play a sound, speak some text, whatever, a list of activities that you want it to do. And so you say, these are the steps that I want to automate and it's very easy to just build this in a very graphical way. You kind of drag an action over, add it to the list, kind of like Automator, drag another action over, add it to your list, set some little, preferences. And then you choose one or more triggers. So how do I make this action happen? Well, do I press a keyboard shortcut? Sure, you can do that. Do I choose a menu command? That works too. How about clicking an icon? You can set it up that way if you want. Oh, I want this thing to happen on a schedule every Thursday at 8 a.m. Fine, you can do that too. There's like 20-some different triggers you can choose from that are what will cause your list of actions to happen. And it doesn't require any coding. It doesn't require any knowledge of scripting. It doesn't require, it's all pretty self-explanatory. And Keyboard Maestro macros will work across applications, and it'll even work with applications that are normally not scriptable or not, available to Automator. So that is one answer to your question. Now, for certain tasks that you might want to do in Keyboard Maestro that are a little more sophisticated, a little more elaborate, well, you can add logic. You can add, well, if this is the case, then do this, and if this other thing is the case, then do that. You can add, do this thing, then wait for 10 seconds, and then do the next thing. Or do this thing, wait for 10 seconds, check to see if this window is open, and if it is, then do this, and if not, but if this other window is open, so you can do all kinds of elaborate stuff if you want to. You don't have to. If you say, well, I want to do these things, and then step 4, that has to be some AppleScript code, or that has to be a Bash script, or it has to be JavaScript, or whatever, fine. If you have the ability to write stuff in programming language, you can drop that into your Keyboard Maestro macro also, but you're not obligated to do that kind of stuff. So that's one answer. You will have to buy Keyboard Maestro, and you will have to learn how to use it. But it can do a lot of things in a very, very simple way. For another portion of the population, Automator is the best first step. Because Automator is free, it comes with your Mac, you can't even, like, you can add AppleScript into your Automator action, but you can't add all the complicated if-then logic, like all the trigger, like all the stuff that Keyboard Maestro has, all those bells and whistles. You can't even do that. Automator is fundamentally do this step, then do this next step, then feed that output to the next thing, and feed that output to the next thing, and then I'm done. So Automator gives you much, much simpler building blocks to work with. The problem with Automator is that even though it looks simple from the outside, looks like, well, yeah, I just drag this thing and I make this list and boom. In real life, I've found that very often Automator actions and workflows don't work the way I expect them to. And and I'm speaking as a geek here, I have gotten frustrated trying to figure out why an Automator workflow isn't working or what I would have to do to get it to work. And that thing, once I finally figure it out, turns out to be highly non-obvious. So for me, Keyboard Maestro is more likely to be my first step. But for some people who think differently, and that's fine, everybody is entitled to think the way they think. For some people, Automator is an easier, gentler first step. So you try that whichever way, and if you hit a wall, then you say, might need to resort to an AppleScript here. Then you work on AppleScript and you say, I've hit another wall. Might need a shell script here. And then you hit another wall and it's like, well, I might have to learn some Swift here. But honestly, it's going to take you a long time before you get there. You can solve a vast number of automation problems without getting anywhere near Xcode or Objective-C or Swift. You can do a lot of stuff with drag and drop.
MacVoices is powered by Smile, the makers of world-class software for the Mac and iOS. Find out about how their amazing utilities can make you more productive at smilesoftware.com. Did you know that Smile just keeps making their utilities better and better? Not just in that big point update, but sometimes useful little features and improvements sneak in as new updates are released. Take PDF Pen, for example. The latest update, 9.1, adds PDF bookmarks. With this new feature, you can save a bookmark link to a specific page. Highly useful for that 300-page contract that you were reviewing at 3 a.m. Now, where did I see that indemnification clause? With bookmarks, you can save and jump right back to it. Bookmarks can be created in PDF Pen, but you will need PDF Pen Pro to edit them. And now, PDF Pen will also remember your window position for previously opened documents and place them where they were when closed. Seems like a little thing, doesn't it? Not if you have 4 or 5 or more documents open across 2 or 3 monitors and need to get back to them. That feature alone will save you time and let you get things done, rather than spending time repositioning and rearranging windows. Those are just the latest improvements in an already great program. With features like optical character recognition, a hand tool, custom highlight colors, line numbering, secure redaction, and a huge list more, PDF Pen is the app that you want to have for working with your PDF documents. PDF Pen Pro adds even more features, and many of the most popular, frequently used features can be found in PDF Pen for iPad and iPhone. Believe me, you need PDF Pen even if you don't know it. Find out about the power that you've been missing by visiting smilesoftware.com and downloading a free trial of PDF Pen today. Right now. Stop putting it off. You will thank me later. That's PDF Pen, PDF Pen Pro, and PDF Pen for iPhone and iPad from Smile, the makers of world-class software. Thanks to Smile for their ongoing support of MacVoices. Okay, so I think most people know what Automator is. I think they probably know what AppleScript is. You start getting into shell scripts, and then some eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
Can you give us a pretty simple definition of a shell script and what it takes to get involved with shell scripts?
As a matter of fact, I have an entire book that talks about the command line in terminal. So macOS is based on Unix. It's a type of Unix. And the way that people have interacted with Unix since day one is the command line. It's a blank, empty window, and there's a little blinking cursor there, and you type in a command, and then it spits out some text. Something happens. You're like, okay, I'm going to type in another command. You type in a command, and some text flows by, and things happen. And this was the way that people interacted with Unix, just as it was the way that people interacted with their Apple IIs, okay? The way they interacted with DOS computers since way back when. Point and click GUIs were a more recent invention. So you can do not quite everything, but a huge number of things you can do with a Mac, as you can do on a Linux computer, as you can do on a Windows computer, simply by typing stuff in the command line. And that could be as simple as, give me a list of the files that are in this folder, change the name of this file, copy this file, easy stuff like that. Or it could be really sophisticated things. So a shell script is basically just a text file that is a list of commands. I'm going to copy this file and then move it to this directory and name it this, and then I'm going to do this other. So you could just take a series of those commands that you could type in terminal and list those commands in a text file, and you do a little yada, yada, yada magic to make it a thing that you can run, and it's really just a tiny little thing. But then you type in the name of this file, and it says, okay, I'm going to just do those things for you as a sequence. Now you can take that, just as you can do in Keyboard Maestro, just as you can do in Automator, and make it more elaborate. So you can say, I don't just want to do this fixed set of commands. What I want to do is I want to say, I'm going to type in this word, and then it's going to ask me a question, and I'm going to respond to that. I'll type something else, and based on what I respond with, it will do something different. So your scripts can also be programs in the sense that they include logic, they include variables, they include loops, they include if-then-else kinds of statements, and much more. So you can get as elaborate as you want with shell scripts. A lot of if you download Unix software and install it on your Mac, it'll usually have an installer, and all you do is you type the word install. But what happens behind the scenes is, it's running compilers and it's figuring out all these variables, and you're setting preferences and copying files to different places, doing all this stuff. And if you were to look at that script, that install script, it's actually this full-blown program that does all these different things for you. So for certain kinds of activities that you might want to do on your Mac, a shell script is either the best or easiest, or in some cases the only way to do it. But don't think of it as being, this crazy geek voodoo. No, it's just like a text file. It's literally a text file with every line has a command on it. And maybe there's some extra stuff to give it a little bit of zip and magic, but that's essentially what it is. And so it's nothing to be afraid of.
Okay, nothing to be afraid of, but also something you need to have some familiarity with terminal commands to be able to start to author.
Cars are, in one sense, nothing to be afraid of. Most of us drive in and or ride in cars pretty much every day, and most of us would have the attitude that, okay, it's just a car, right? Nothing to be afraid of. Cars can also kill you, and they do. So it's important to know kind of which pedal does which action. It's important to stay away from the hard, sharp end of a car that's going in motion, things like that. And shell scripts are the same way. I could tell you in 5 minutes how to write a shell script that would completely destroy your computer, erase all the files or something similarly destructive. So yeah, you do want to learn to, which end to hold it by, but as long as you exercise some basic caution, it can be as simple and as harmless of a tool as a car is.
I assume that's an unpublished chapter, How to Destroy Your Computer with Shell Scripts. Yeah.
It costs extra.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. So it's easy for me to start asking you a lot of questions, but I want to turn you loose. What else do we need to know about this book and about your approach to automation? Because I know that this book covers a lot of different aspects of automation and attacks it from a number of different angles. What do you want to make sure we know?
There's so much. When I wrote the first edition of the book, I was talking about how you can use dictation on your Mac, and not just like to dictate words, but commands that your Mac will understand to do stuff. And I said, it's too bad that the Mac doesn't have Siri yet. Someday, maybe Siri will come to the Mac And then we would be able to do a whole different set of things. Well, guess what? It's here. So I had to write about using Siri on your Mac, in addition to all those things that you used to be able to do the old way. I talk about new different things that you can do now that you couldn't do before with iCloud Drive. I talk about new and different clipboard utilities. I talk about the evolution of some tools like IFTTT, if then that. It's a web automation thing. I talk about different ways of doing Mac-to-Mac syncing. And then I talk about, so I used to have this chapter, because I have all these different chapters and all these different topics, and I finally get to this point, it's like, now I'm going to tell you about the built-in automation platforms that are included with Mac OS, such as shell scripts and services, and Automator and AppleScript, and all those were together in one big chapter. And people would write to me and they would say, well, that's nice, but I mean, AppleScript, like there have been 900-page books written on AppleScript alone. Could you maybe give us a little bit more? I mean, there could be a whole book on any one of those topics. Could you at least give us a chapter on each one? So I said, yes, I can do that. So I took that chapter on all the Mac automation technology, the built-in technologies together, and I split it out into 5 separate chapters. So now, and then I expanded each of the topics, especially the AppleScript and Automator topics. I say a lot more about those, a lot more than I used to. So what I think I do now is to give you more of a leg up learning AppleScript. I tell you about more of the basics and give you more ready-made examples that you can just copy and paste and run, and oh, that does this thing. Now I get how that works. Oh, here's an example of this other thing. I can just copy and paste that. Now I see how that works too. So I do that with AppleScript. I do that with Automator. All those are very much expanded. One of the things I do with AppleScript that I did not do before is give you more information on this thing called GUI scripting. So the idea is if you have an app that you want to automate with AppleScript, but it doesn't have built-in AppleScript commands for some or any of the things you want to do, you might be able to do this little trick that uses macOS accessibility frameworks to say, okay, just click this button. Find me this button that's named this, that's in this location, and just click that for me, okay? I know you don't have a command to do it, but let's just fake it by clicking this button or entering this keystroke or choosing this menu command. And so I not only tell you how to do that, I also tell you about this app called UI Browser, which was written by Bill Cheeseman, who is like a legend in the AppleScript world. He and Sal Segoyan wrote one of the biggest and greatest books on AppleScript together. So he has this app called UI Browser that helps you to find what these objects are and what they're called and how to refer to them in your AppleScript. And Bill was nice enough to even offer readers of the book a discount on his app. So I have a coupon in the back of the book for that app too. I did the same thing with this fantastic tool called Script Debugger, which is a much, much, much more powerful version of Script Editor for people writing hardcore Apple scripts. They want to be able to do more powerful things more easily and figure out why their scripts aren't working. And this is a great tool to do that. I tell you about that app. I give you a discount for it because the author was nice enough to offer one. So I'm trying to just give readers more and more and more about every topic, more information, more discounts, more encouragement, and more instruction and more examples. So I do that with all of those topics, and then one of the new things that we mentioned the CMD-Conference, and one of the things that is going to be talked about at this conference is this brand new technology from the Omni group called Omni Automation. So Omni Automation is kind of an evolution. It used to be that you could use AppleScript to automate OmniGraph, Omni Outline or whatever. And then JavaScript for automation came along, and it became possible to use JavaScript in place of AppleScript, if you like, to automate your apps. Now, Omni Automation is the next iteration of that, where you are using JavaScript code to automate Omni apps, yes. But the cool thing is you can write a script in OmniGraffle for Mac and then use exactly that same script to do the same automation in OmniGraffle on your iPad or vice versa. So this kind of cross-platform scripting in Omni apps is a new and very, very powerful, very cool thing. There are things you can now do on either platform that you could not do before. So I have a whole chapter introducing you to OmniGraffle and giving you some great examples of how to get started with that. The other thing I want to mention is when I was writing this book, I was thinking to myself, now I can't find, where do I talk about control plane? Because I wanted to make sure I said, wait a minute, and I did a search and I don't actually mention there's this automation app that I use every day that I really need called Control Plane. And I never mention it in the book, and I can't believe I never mentioned it. I'm sorry. Now I do. And Control Plane is this really interesting app. It's a little bit like a macro app, but not exactly. You say, I want to do a certain activity, or I want a certain activity to happen automatically when something in my environment changes, such as I switch from AC power to battery power, or I plug in an external monitor, or I plug in a certain other peripheral or hard drive or something, or my camera is disconnected, or I'm physically at that coffee shop that has this certain wireless network name. So there are all these different conditions you can look for that are not like, when this keyboard shortcut is pressed, it's more environmental, like this thing is plugged in or it's not, or I'm using this network or I'm not, or I'm geographically in this location or something along those lines. And you can use those contextual clues to do things like saying, there's this app that I like having run on my Mac, but it uses kind of a lot of electricity. So whenever I switch to battery power, I want you to just go ahead and quit that app automatically. And when I plug my computer back in, go ahead and open that app again. So stuff like that, or like when I happen to have an external monitor connected to my iMac, then I want Windows to rearrange in a certain way. And then when I unplug that monitor, I want them to be configured differently. So I talk about control plane. I also talk about this really great cool tool called Better Touch Tool. And Better Touch Tool is something that lets you automate, a trackpad, for example, or if you have a leap motion, one of these, it's just a device that detects gestures. You just move your hands in the air over this little box, and it detects the shape of, I'm not going to demonstrate the gesture that I use for force quit, but you can imagine. But it takes the input from various pointing devices, trackpads, surfaces, and so forth, and lets you assign actions to them that go way beyond what you can do in the trackpad preference pane of macOS, for example. So I want that, if I hold my two fingers in the air above my leap motion, I make a sort of volume up gesture, like a twisting gesture, I want that to actually increase the volume on my Mac. Or if I, tap 3 times with 5 fingers, or I tap in this corner, that corner, the other corner with a certain number of fingers, I want this thing to happen on my Mac. So it's an incredibly flexible, powerful tool for triggering different actions to happen. So I talk about that. So there's just a bunch of new stuff like that I either, forgot about, or for whatever. I accidentally omitted the first time around, and I have corrected that mistake. So there's just a ton of new and/or improved and/or expanded stuff, and I'm super thrilled about it.
I can understand how it happens, because you implement these applications, they become part of your workflow in your life, and you kind of forget that they aren't there as part of the OS.
Right.
They're so every day. It's like a window or a sidebar. Yeah, that's just the way it is, and you forget. So it's easy to understand how you can overlook it.
When I have to use someone else's Mac for something, and they don't have Launch Bar, and they don't have Text Expander, and they don't have Keyboard Maestro. But no, I know this keyboard shortcut. This does this. Oh, because but you don't have. How can you live? How can you live like that? And it's not like I'm thinking, how could you be such an idiot for not having this app configured this certain way? It's more just. It's a sadness, because I do feel like I see this all the time. But look, life is too short. Don't put yourself to unnecessary effort and waste time, because I'm sure that you could use that time that you're saving to hang out with your kids, or to eat chocolate, or to watch a movie, or something that is like fun and useful and life-giving, or make money, whatever your thing is. But you could use wouldn't you like to get back an extra hour every day, or even 5 minutes a day, that you could do something with that you like better than fighting with your computer? I know I would. So that's why I just love finding these shortcuts and figuring out how I can automate my own stuff, and teaching other people how to do the same thing.
I'm excited to tell you that Eero is the newest sponsor of MacVoices. Why am I excited? Because mesh networking is one of the hottest things going in making wireless communication for your home or business more reliable, faster, and with better coverage, and Eero is at the top of the list. I was fairly happy with my previous wireless router, and had become accustomed to the range coverage in my house, where the less than ideal spots were, and the updates that occasionally came out that took a little bit of time to install. Then I had the chance to install the Eero system, and I won't be going back. With Eero, I have coverage that gives me wireless access throughout the house, the yard, and beyond. Even better, setup took only about 10 minutes, and I was up and running with no problems. I'll be telling you more about my personal Eero experience this week, but right now I want to make sure you understand how they do what they do. It's simple, really. The second generation Eero system has just launched and makes Eero even better. Now, you get one Eero and 1 or 2 beacons. The Eero itself sits flat on your desk and probably takes up less space than your old router. The beacons are not extenders like you might have used before, but mesh access points that are small enough to be unobtrusive and plug directly into an electrical outlet. They even come with an ambient nightlight option that you can turn on or off as you see fit. These are more powerful than the Eero Gen 1, but that doesn't mean that anybody's left out, because Eero Gen 2 beacons are backward compatible. And with the new Thread radio, you can easily connect your favorite low-power Internet of Things devices like doorbells, locks, and more. Need to connect other devices via Ethernet? No problem. Eero comes with a second Ethernet port that you can connect to a switch or hub to deliver expandability that grows as you need it to. There's so much more to tell you about Eero. Their ease of setup, the impressive range, the security, the ease of maintaining the system, but we'll get to all that. Right now, I want you to know that Eero systems start at just $399 for 1 Eero and 2 beacons, and that's all you need to get started with Eero. In fact, that may be all you need because of the coverage and efficiency of Eero, but if you have a mansion or a large office, no problem. Eero can cover that too. Right now, you can get free overnight shipping by visiting Eero.com and using the coupon code MacVoices at checkout. That means that if you hurry up and order right now, by tomorrow, you can be up and running with your new Eero mesh network. It really is that easy to set up. You're going to love the power, simplicity, coverage, and speed of Eero, but you have to get it first. So again, visit Eero.com and at checkout, use the code MacVoices to receive overnight shipping. Thanks to Eero and welcome as a new sponsor of MacVoices. You've just given me a few ideas.
Okay.
Stay tuned. Stay
tuned.
Yeah, but they involve you, so be careful. I may steal time from you.
Oh, well, I have to say, though, ever since taking the reins of Take Control, automation has been very, very much on my mind. We've probably hit on this a few times in the past and will again in the future. But there's this paradox that if a task takes me 5 minutes to do manually and I want to automate it, it might take me a couple of hours or even a full day to figure out the process by which I automate it. Once I've done that, I will eventually amortize that savings. So, you take a whole day to automate a task that would have otherwise taken you 5 minutes. It's going to take you several months before you get that 5 minutes back every day. Eventually, it's going to be so much better. Well, in the process of creating every single book, in the process of running royalties for all the authors every month, and there's like all these different things that I have to do as a publisher that each take a lot of time. Sometimes this takes 5 minutes, sometimes this takes 2 hours. And one of the most frustrating things for me in writing this new update of this book is like, I don't want to write about this. I don't want to publish this. I want to do this. I want to spend the next 2 or 3 solid weeks doing nothing but automating stuff, because once it's automated, I'm going to save so much time. And even though I know that spending those 8 hours automating this 5-minute thing will save me time in the long run, I don't actually have 8 hours this week or next week or the week after to automate that thing. So I'm just chipping away at these things little by little by little. And the thing that took me 5 days last month, hopefully it'll only take me 1 day this month. And eventually I can see I know how to do it. Eventually it's going to take me 5 minutes, step by step by step. But that's also one of the messages of the book, is that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can chip away at automation tasks little by little. If it takes, 38 steps to produce a PDF that's ready to sell, then maybe I do that. And then, next time it took me only 35 steps. So that's nice. And the time after that, it's only going to take me 30 steps. And eventually, 1 step. Eventually. But that's what we're aiming to do, is to just shave off some of that complexity and make your lives simpler.
I'm so glad you told that story, simply because I think that's one of the failures of us, and of me. Maybe I shouldn't include the viewers and the listeners, but that I'm looking for the one quick hit. I'm looking, okay, this is what I want to do, and I'm looking for that one utility that'll do it, and I want to take 5 minutes to set it up, and then it'll save me all this time. And that's not the way this works. So.
Right. I also have to say, though, I talk to the movers and shakers in the Mac automation world. I chat with Peter Lewis, who's the author of Keyboard Maestro, and among other things, I talk with Sal Segoyan, and I talk with Bill Cheeseman, and I kind of geek out over getting to interact with these legends, And I was talking with Peter Lewis, and he said, "Oh, by the way, we're gonna pretty soon we're gonna start beta testing the next version of Keyboard Maestro. Would you like to help me beta test that?" I'm like, "Oh, yes, please." And I get really excited about this. He's like, "Well, just as a preview, here are some of the things that you will be able to do in the next version." And I look at this list and I'm like, "Oh, I needed to do that thing on Saturday. Oh man, did I need to do that thing? And I could not figure out a way to automate this, and I really needed to do this. And thank you, Peter. And when's that beta coming again? Because I really need to be able to do that thing." And it's like that. It's addictive. It's like the more you do, the more you realize, well, I should be able to automate anything. There shouldn't be anything that is outside my, supreme cosmic power. And so it's really neat to be able to get a little bit of a behind the scenes look at how some of the tools work, to be able to offer some feedback, to get some tips. Oh, I didn't know you could do that too. I'm totally going to do that. So it's been really fun.
You need to work on your enthusiasm, Joe.
I know. I am.
You're just so low key.
Look, I have said this, and I think that maybe I've demonstrated it too. This is one of my favorite topics because this really is something that I'm passionate about. This is something that's fun for me, and I think it can be fun for almost anybody. I want you to look at automation not as this, weird, obscure, difficult thing that you have to have this very specific mindset for. It's something that can make anybody's life easier and more fun. And I get so much joy out of solving problems like this, of figuring out how to make a complicated thing simple, that I just don't want to do anything else. And honestly, it's depressing to have to go back to just like writing books and publishing books after spending some time testing out new automation stuff, because once I start, that's all I want to do. And I would very much like to pass on that addiction to other people.
Oh, good. Thank you. So at this point, let's talk about the book. We've just been talking about the book, but how do folks go about getting it? What kind of pricing is there, and how's that working this time around?
As publisher, I have tried to be more aggressive in pricing, let us say. I want people to buy our books. I want to remove or reduce barriers to buying our books. So I want to offer the best deal I can. We have this sort of informal rule of thumb in Take Control, or that we have had in the past. Generally speaking, our first books, we were trying to hit around 50 pages. This is many years ago, trying to hit around 50 pages, and we charged $5 for them. When we started noticing our books were getting quite a bit longer, our books were kind of being around 100 pages, we started charging $10 for them. Then we noticed the books were often getting to be more like 150 pages, and we started charging $15 for them. And we started getting into these slightly longer books, and we realized, we can write a 200-page book. We can write a 300-page book. People still don't really want to pay. They don't want to pay $30 for a 300-page ebook. They just really don't. Some of our books are $20, but some, above, roughly $15, we found that people just aren't feeling that as something that they would like to pay for a book. So the first edition of this book was like 199 pages, or just like slightly under 200. And I've added, I cut some stuff because I had to cut some stuff. But even with cutting stuff, it's still like 230 pages. I still end up adding about 40 pages to it. But I'm keeping the price the same. So it was $15, which by that metric should have been a bargain. Now it's a longer book, same price, so a bigger bargain. If you had the first edition, I'm going to give it to you at, let us say, a generous discount, really generous, attractive discount, and you will get email from me about that, or you can click the ebook extras little icon thing on the top of little thing on the badge. What do you call it? The thing, the rectangle, that area on the front of your PDF. You can click that to get all the deets if you didn't get the email. But also, I mentioned the command line and shell scripts and my book on the command line earlier. That's still a really good and useful and important book. And because there's a lot of overlap between automation and the command line, I'm also offering a sort of cross-grade discount. So anyone who has the old version of that book, any version of the command line book, can also get the automation book for real cheap. And we're offering a bundle of the two books together for a discount. So normally they'd be $15 a piece, but we're offering the bundle of both books for $20. So we're trying to make it as easy and attractive as possible to get both of these books. And we want to feel like you're really, really, really getting your money's worth, because not only is the book itself cheap, and not only is the upgrade cheaper, but also we've got all these coupons in the back of the book. You can save money on all these different tools that I discuss in the book. The discounts range from 10% to 30%, depending on the product. We have coupons for Keyboard Maestro, Launchbar, Hazel, OmniWriter Pro, OmniGraffle, Script Debugger, Text Expander, Text Soap, Type It For Me, Typinator, and UI Browser. I haven't even added up how many dollars you could save if you used all those coupons, but let's just say way, 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 way more than the book costs. So I like to think of it as basically we're paying you to buy this book, so you can't afford not to get it. We are doing everything possible to make this an attractive offer for you, because I love this topic so much, and I feel so strongly that it's going to make every Mac user's life better, and that's what I want to do. So
sounds good.
you go to takecontrolbooks.com and you click the buy button.
Because it's automated, right?
Because it's automated.
There are kind of things that happen behind the scenes when you hit the buy button. So
that's right.
All right. Oh, Joe, every time I talk to you, man, I just got all kind of new projects and things to do. You write the books and then you just suck the life right out of me.
I love doing that, though.
Yeah, I know.
I love, I was talking with some folks earlier about, maybe we might do a kind of home automation book. Wouldn't be a book I would write, book somebody else would write. And we're talking about this metaphor of, and then the light bulb went on over their head, and I, as when I am teaching somebody how to do something, and I see that you see that spark of recognition. I love that feeling. That is so satisfying to me. Of course, if we do a book on home automation, then that can literally happen. The light bulb can actually go on over your head, but that just gives me so much satisfaction and pleasure to see other people going, oh, look at how much better things are going to be now. So it's a real delight.
I'll give you a report. Okay, so takecontrolbooks.com, Take Control of Automating Your Mac, second edition, Joe Kissell. Joe, thanks so much for the time. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for giving me even more to do. I really appreciate that.
I'm happy to oblige.
And there are more books in the pipeline, so you'll be back here soon.
You better believe it.
So that means until the next time, thank you. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We'll be back with more soon, too. Go automate something, will you? Don't let me be the only one that's been affected by Joe's interview this time and in that fashion. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the MacVoices blog, the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com, bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.